Hey everybody. So I am now going to attempt something I've been thinking about doing for years, and actually the longer I wait, the longer and harder it gets to do, because I am attempting my Coldsteel collection, but not just in one video, in 3 videos. This video will be folders. I think so that it's not too long and so that I don't have to spend too much time going around the house gathering all of my Coldsteels. I'm just going to do it in segments. Folders, fixed blades, and then swords, tomahawks, and other cool things. So I'll have 3 separate videos. Not sure when the other 2 will come out, but today I am attempting the folders. All right, and I tried to figure out, should I go oldest to newest, but I wouldn't be able to remember the order. And then I thought, should I go smallest to largest? And I thought, well, I guess that makes just about as much sense as anything else. So I'm going to start with the smallest Coldsteel folder I have, which actually isn't on me, and I didn't think about this, but it's the micro Coldsteel Recon, and that's on my keys. So the next one up from there is this, the ToughLite. I opted for the ToughLite with Serrations, one of the few fully serrated knives at the time I bought this that I had, and it's great little EDC. This comes in, or I should say utility. I never carried this as an EDC. This actually lives in the master bathroom of our house. Yeah, I guess semi, it's there in case I'm shaving and someone breaks in and I have to, but really it's to open up soap and shampoo and other crap that my wife, jams and jellies that she has. We'll open it up with this. This is one of a couple of bathroom knives. The ToughLite is very thinly hollow ground, and I gotta say, AUS 8 is not the most robust of steels, so this very thinly ground, hollow ground Bowie blade, very good cutter, but I'd be careful with what you use it for. All right, moving right along. Here is my El Hombre. This is from the late 90s, not exactly sure when. You'll excuse me, I will be getting a little anal retentive about the blades here. Great knife, carried this one. This was an EDC for a long time, and though it looks like it might not be, that's a full 4-inch long blade, plus its sinuous curves add to the actual cutting length. Great knife. This little stain up here, it's been there ever since early days of this knife. I went camping and with a vegetarian girlfriend and cut some tofu, some baked tofu lin, and it stained this knife. And that should have been my indication that I was eating the wrong foods. This does not have the triad, by the way. This is just their standard lockback, old school. And actually, it works very well. These are pretty stout lockbacks. Next, I have the ti-lite, the small ti-lite with the grivery handles, and yes, that's AUS 8A steel. I'm just going to start calling it AUS 8 steel. Love this knife. I love the sort of traditional Italian stiletto look of it. It's nasty, it's very businesslike, and it's one of the few Coldsteel liner locks. The Luzons are liner locks, and I believe there are a couple others. Great knife, very sharp. I mean, I've just worry-stropped this for a long time, and it's very sharp. Okay, next I'll do another old one. Here is an old, I guess this was medium at the time, but it's the 4-inch early Voyager Tanto, and as you can see, it's got the old school pocket clip integrated in with the plastic handle. Great knife. I remember I got this at Roseland Martial Arts, which used to be a great martial arts store with tons and tons of knives in, of all places, Times Square, before Times Square was domesticated. I bought a couple of knives you're going to see today there. Next, sticking with the Voyager theme, this is one of the newer generation Voyagers. This is an AUS 8A, so this was when they first came out with this new Andrew Demko designed Voyager. Love this knife. This resides in my go bag, so when when the Golden Horde comes this way and starts taking land and I have to leave. This is what's in there. However, if I have any lead time, I'm sure I'll dump this and grab some more valuable knives, for trading. Great. These Voyagers are great utility knives and just great, low cost, cool designed, robust knives. This one, by the way, that's an edge from the KME sharpener that I have that I'm learning on. Okay, so this is another one. This is the Voyager Tanto in. This is also AUS 8. They're at AUS 10 now. I have the Snaggletooth MF pocket wave opener there. This thing's awesome. This lives in my car. This is one of the rotating car knives. Sorry for that nasty burn. That was a burn and now it's scabbing, and I should have put a band-aid over it so you don't have to look at it, but don't worry, it's not oozing, so we're all good. Voyager with the thingy. I have another one with the Snaggletooth MF. I love this thing. I had Rob Penna, the designer and maker of this thing, on my podcast about a year ago. Interesting dude. They make cool products, aftermarket products for knives. This is my Coldsteel Broken Skull and CTS XHP steel, a steel I like very much. This thing has gone to a number of overseas locations with me. Stupidly, I'm not going to do that anymore because, well, I don't want to die in a foreign prison, and I don't know what I was thinking. But I bought it pink, thinking that it would throw people off, like, gee whiz, I don't know how this knife got on me, but it's pink. It must be, my wife's. Please spare her. Just kidding. Cognitive dissonance, that's what I was going for with this. You look at it and you think, oh, how bad can it be? It's pink. So, incidentally, you go to the Coldsteel website, I believe it's the Coldsteel website, and you can get these for $40, whereas all the other Broken Skulls are like close to 80. It's because I'm assuming the pink was a misstep. Not too many people like the pink. All right, on to the Recon 1s, the small Recon 1s. This is an AUS 8 Recon 1. I used some aircraft stripper and took the whatever it was, the black coating off of this, and man, did it. I also used a Dremel to widen out that choil, and which I never understood why they made such a small sharpening choil and then sharpened right up to within a few millimeters of it and then left the last bit dull. And then I realized it's because of where they placed the thumb stud. They can't sharpen anymore. They can't sharpen quite to the end. So I say just make a bigger sharpening choil. Anyway, I like the way it looks, and it's definitely handy on the sharpening. And this is my own little homemade thingy there. And then I have a S35 VN Recon 1 Tanto. I got this to put on the Snaggletooth MF, and Snaggletooth also makes a sort of karambit ring attachment for the full-size Recon 1. And I go back and forth. I'll leave it on here sometimes, and then I'll take it off, and then I'll put it back on, I'll take it off. This resides next to my bed. This is the Bedside folding knife. All right. That's so gross. Sorry about that. Pretty nice look, though. Pretty nice feel, the way this thing locks in. All right. 3 more of these smaller folders. Next, a gift from my beautiful wife. This is the Black Talon 2 in that nasty, sinuous S-curve blade, quite reminiscent of the Black Talon 1 by Coldsteel, and even more reminiscent than the Spyderco's Civilian, well, anyway, that S-curve you'll see on the Civilian, Spyderco, who sort of pioneered this shape, made theirs a lot less stout than Coldsteel, as you may imagine. The beak of theirs is tiny, like you wouldn't want to open a box with it. You only want to shred flesh with it. This you could actually use, for utility if you were desperate or, needed to. That hook would do nicely opening up boxes, but it might work too nicely and actually shred the contents. Looks like I need to clean this one up. Looks like the beginning of a little bit of oxidation on the tip there. Very, very nice knife. This very thin, svelte knife used to ride on the inside pocket of my Duluth Trading Company jacket in the winter with the clip on the other side. So if I needed to, I could whoosh, wave it out using the thumb plate and, you know, cut through a leather jacket. I don't know what I would use this for aside doing that kind of thing, which I don't really do anyway, so I just love it. What can I say? All right, AD-15, the Andrew Demko. We all know this awesome, awesome knife. So glad they made a production version of it, and I'm so glad it's such a high fidelity version. I know there are some differences in the lock. This is aluminum. On the custom, it's titanium, and it's actually not hinged here. It's hinged here, I believe. But aside from that and a few other minor details, which you can learn about on my Knife Junkie podcast interview with Mr. Andrew Demko. I can't remember what number that is, maybe number 27. Go peruse the Knife Junkie podcast, and there will probably be designers, makers, or reviewers that I've talked to that you're interested in. I have not talked to Lynn Thompson yet. We've been doing some back and forth with his assistant. Someday we'll find a time. And finally, the AD-10. Love the AD-10. This is my go-to. This has sort of usurped my go-to outdoors, like working around the yard knife. This thing is so comfy in hand, so sturdy and beefy, and just kind of a lovely user knife. I was always very fond of the custom design, and you know, I love this too. These things are so smooth. Coldsteel makes the smoothest backlocks. These triads are just killer. You know, just, and then they leave just enough choil here for you to put your finger forward, let the knife drop, boom. This is one-handed and even fidget friendly, you might say. Cool knife. All right, so let's clear these out and let's get to the big ones. There was a point in time when I vowed to, well, I started looking at my collection and thinking, if I got every Coldsteel I wanted, there would be no time or room for anything else, because I really like their stuff, as you know. And then I decided I'm going to play to their strengths and only buy their large knives. And the 4-inch and lower, I won't bother with. But it's been hard to stick to that when they make such great knives like this and this and this. I mean, well, I made that decision after I bought the Recons, but so you know what? I'm not going to limit myself. All right. So moving on to the big knives. The smallest of the big knives, the Spartan. What a cool knife. This was from the very first batch of them, I believe. AUS 8A, that was bead blasted. I sanded it down. Love the way that looks when you sand a bead blasted blade. It's, you know, just stupid, ridiculous sharp. I put this sort of poor man's thing, what do you call that? Poor man's lanyard bead on there. And this used to be by my bed. Now it's just back in the case, but what a great knife. And I am a sucker for a recurve. I love recurves. They're not hard to sharpen. All you have to do is get the right kind of surface to sharpen on. Obviously, you don't want to use a big flat stone. You want to use something like the corner of an edge maker or a rounded steel sort of thing, or a rounded stone. Love that handle. Oh yeah, these are bigger, so it's gonna take a little to get them in frame. What's next? Next, I will go with the, oh yes, this is an old one, an oldie but goodie. This is an old Voyager. I don't know what generation, but I do know that I got it also at Roseland Martial Arts, formerly of Times Square. Hasn't been there in 20 years now, I bet. Very sharp. I mean, really, really sharp because of that hollow grind. And has always been one of my sharpest knives. But also one of my more slick and less front finger guard accommodating, so I put on the old Nut and Fancy mod, the skateboard tape, and this seems to do a pretty good job. This one is pretty thin, and then you see how they did that with the width there to accommodate the built-in clip, but still very thin and very capable. Just not crazy about the clip, and it rides up like that, but you know, it's not often I carry it. So when I do, I don't care about any of that. This does ride well in the waistband too, by the way. Next, another large one, another Roseland Martial Arts purchase. I believe this was the last of them. I'm starting to get a little oxidation on a few of these. I guess I haven't opened them up in a while, but this was always my go-to yard knife. And believe it or not, when I lived in New York City back in the 90s and up to the mid-2000s, I carried this, not all the time, but for a while I appendix carried this in my jeans, in the waistband, just thinking I was, God, I don't know, lapu. I don't know who I was thinking I was, but thank God I never got pinched carrying this. I'd still be over at Rikers right now. Great knife. This thing is not with the triad, but super stout. I mean, I've used this so much, divining the place, just whatever is needed outside, I've used this for, and it's excelled. Love it. I'm not going to say it's coming towards the end of its life, but the AD-10 is giving it a run for its money, at least in terms of what I like to pocket when I'm out working, because when I'm out working, I also have a sheath blade, usually the Tops Crooked River, and not Crooked River, the Tops, whatever, I can't remember, something creek. So I don't need something this big, and the AD-10 is now kind of taking the spot of this. Okay, anyway, next, this was a housewarming gift from my incredible brother, Vic DeMarco. He and I did a podcast recently, right over the holidays, where we talked about some dumb knife stories from our youth and not so youth, and he's a great guy, and he's gotten me some great gifts, this being among them. The Raja 2, what a great, what a ridiculous knife, really. Just a beautiful folding kukri. You got this clip that rides audaciously low and makes the thing ride so high, but it doesn't matter. It's such a big beast. It's not you're going to hide this thing anyway, carrying it around. And can you handle much more than this in your pocket? My pockets don't go much deeper than that. So anyway, this is AUS 8A. This is the AUS 8 generation or whatever, one of the first Grivery. Great housewarming gift. I love this knife. Very, very rarely carry it, but frequently pull it out for the evenings. Not fidget knife, but knife to have on the seat in case someone tries to climb in the window, I guess. I'm sure you have plenty of those. Okay, next. Here, I'm going to take a little break and set this down for a moment as I discuss the Frenzy. This is the Coldsteel Frenzy. I love this knife because I love that hawk bill shaped blade, and I originally thought, oh, well, seeing as Lynn Thompson is a Filipino martial arts guy, maybe this is kind of modeled after the Gununting, and then I realized after doing a little bit of reading, this was actually an Andrew Demko design, and it's based on a Japanese helmet breaching blade. And Andrew Demko has grew up in a Japanese martial arts household. His dad had an Aikido Aikikai, I think he might still, and so he trained for years and years in Aikido and Japanese swordsmanship. So this comes from Andrew Demko's love of Japanese knives. I just love that blade shape. That hook is just, or that gently hawk-shaped blade is just incredible. And the tip, nice and stout. And then you have that swedge for penetration. It's just a really sweet knife. And I'm seeing a little oxidation here. Please don't report me for knife abuse. This is terrible. I'm gonna have to, after this video, I'm gonna go through each one and I'm gonna make sure that it's good to go. Frenzy, great. I mean, this is the one of all of these large knives, except for this one too, that you can really just wear in the front pocket without A, really feeling or noticing it, and B, without it printing too madly to the outside world that you have a 5.5-inch blade on you. This is 6, 5.5. All right, and let's see. Next, we'll go to the Voyagers, large Voyager. I love the Vaquero. So I have this Os 8. I used to have all of the large Voyagers, and then I got rid of the other two, except as gifts. But I kept this for myself because I love that recurved blade. I love the shape of that blade, and I put a little happy rainbow lanyard on it for cognitive dissonance, just in case I have to pull this out. People will say, "Oh, what's he gonna do with that? Look at that friendly lanyard." Yeah. So when this first came on the market, it was on the heels of this. This is sort of an updated version of this. I just about lost it. I love the Navaja, and this reminded me of the Navaja, and yeah, so I snapped it up. Now, years later, they came out with this version in XHP and Serrations and Mr. Lynn Thompson's signature, and this cool green grivery, and I had to have it. So this is one of the few duplications in my collection. I try not to collect too many things. I have a couple of Yojimbo 2s, 2 Yojimbo 2s, 2 of these, a couple of others, but I wouldn't have them if they weren't different in some way. This, of course, the steel and the handle material. This blade shape is proven to be very, very excellent at cutting, and then you add those serrations, and it's very, very effective. I have never used this for anything, not even out in the backyard. It's just kind of staying pristine. I carry it every once in a while, but not much you can do with it without attracting attention. So, and we all know I hate attention. That's why I'm just standing here talking about knives ad infinitum. Next, we have the Recon Larges. Oh yeah, Recon Larges. I love these. XL Recon. This is such a great handle because this, when you choke back or hang back on this handle and use this second finger choil as your first finger choil, and you have your thumb riding up here, and you have this 5.5 inch blade plus, what is that, 2.5 inches, you have quite a lot of reach with this knife. But it is pretty svelte. I mean, it's about as thin as a regular, as a medium. It's, it's flat, and it's got a small looking clip. So when it's in your pocket, it's, unless you're wearing something very tight, it's kind of hard to, it doesn't print as much. Anyway, my point is, what an awesome Bowie blade. You got this full flat ground. It's so wide, and it's, it's a decent thickness. I'm sorry, I can't tell you what it is right now. It's a decent thickness, but it's, it's not like my XM24. And so by the time, that's not time, but when you space out the full flat grind from here to here, it's very thin behind the edge when it gets here. This is just a slicey blade. It's quite impressive. And it's got this sort of matte coating on the XHP, which is different from my Tanto version of the same knife. This is also XHP, but it's got this coating. Oh my gosh, who has been touching my knives when I'm not around? Something's going on, people. This is driving me nuts. Fingerprints. Anyway, so this is a shinier, slicker, less matte finish. And I don't know if that's on purpose or if these are from 2 different generations and they started using a different coating, or, and this is just my imagination, were they thinking, well, this is more of a penetrator because of that tip, so let's give it something slick so when it's moving into the medium, it glides easier. But I guess you would get that from a slicing action too. What? Okay, now I'm just talking. All right, so got my XL Recons. Almost done, guys. The Espada Series. And these are the knives that look most like the beautiful Spanish Navajas. Quick story, in Spain, I can't remember, I think it was the mid-1600s, they weren't allowed to carry swords anymore, so people started making these massive folders and putting them in their cummerbunds or their big, broad cloth belts and fighting with these. with the old school versions of these. Of course, Lynn Thompson, I'm sure he's got a couple hundred of these in his collection. He's got apparently a really awesome collection of historical knives, and that's where he bases a lot of these designs. Love this knife. This is Aus 8. You can see this is a slightly different blade shape than how they make this knife now. This knife now, the spine continues a little bit forward and the clip is a little shorter. This has a really long, pronounced clip. All right. Next, of course, you know I have to have this one. This is the 7.5-inch version of this. By the way, these Espadas are hollow ground, Aus 8. Now they're made of Aus 10, I believe. Look at that. This thing is just a thing of beauty. I love this knife. I love this blade shape, and I think this one more accurately represents the Navaja shape and spirit, more accurately than this one. But still, sorry. But still, you know, I love them both. And then finally, another gift from my brother Vic. Oh yeah. The big shiny version. The big shiny version. These are exquisitely sharp. Make no mistake, these are not just novelty wall hanger toys. These are sharp and stout. I know it need not be said because they're Coldsteel, but I think I would just felt like saying that again. Look at this beautifully polished G10 and these bolsters. Aluminum, I think they're aluminum bolsters. Not sure actually. But these transitions are nice. It just adds a bit of class, doesn't it? This looks like something from a different era. All shiny and nice. So this is these XL Espadas are really fantastic because if you really actually were going to use a knife to fight with, this would be a really great one. You could show up discreetly by having it folded and stuffed in your pants or whatever. But when you wave it out, well, actually it's dangerous to wave this out because the blade is so long, you might end up jabbing yourself with the tip. I've done that a few times. But once you open this thing up, look at your options for close-in work, and then you can go here. This is one of my favorite positions right here. You kind of use this horn between your fingers there, or you can come down here, and really you have a machete, effectively. You have a 7.5-inch blade and then another 5 inches here. That's 12.5 inches. This is like a machete in your hand. So this is a great design if you're actually considering carrying something as a fighting knife. Now, of course, I don't espouse that, and it's completely unrealistic, but in a different time, place, situation, circumstance, whatever, this would be a great one to have. Anyway, thanks for sticking around and watching this. This is my folding Coldsteel collection, minus the micro Recon one, and I'm sure there's probably something I'll come across and be like, damn, I forgot I had this. But these are the big guys. All right, everybody, now don't get impatient about the fixed blade version, and don't get impatient about the swords, tomahawks, and other cool implements video. Those will be forthcoming, just not sure when. So I hope you enjoyed this, and don't take dull for an answer.